Hi guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be going over the effects that COVID had on the professional tennis circuit. So, first of all, tennis is such a diverse sport. It's one of the sports that's played all around the world globally, and it makes it very tough when there's a global pandemic going on, and it was hard for players to travel to tournaments around the world, really, with the whole thing going on the way it was. So, really, it's many of the tournaments were canceled during the pandemic, including the Australian Open, the French Open, and Wimbledon. And at the very end of before the quarantine mandates were lifted in many countries, the US Open was held that year, but players like Nick Kyrgios from Australia, who was coming from the other side of the world, didn't feel like coming to the US for the US Open because of how tough it is flying. Like all the different stops is such a risk of spreading the virus. And more famously, Rafael Nadal withdrew. He did not play the tournament in the hope to spread the virus and with that movement. So that year's US Open was really, and it was also no spectators. Like all around the world, like sports had no spectators going on at that time. So it was very tough for like players to really go about things the right way like that. Tennis was abruptly halted with the news of the COVID pandemic, and with tennis, many of the players had a lot of off time, but of course, this off time had to have usage of training and rigorous training. Tennis is one of the sports where you can't really just stop it. You just have to stay focused on your training and just go along with it. It's like it's a sport, if you stop it, you're gonna start losing your progression very quickly. So you gotta stick with it and continue to practice weekly. Like you can't just it's like it's a sport where it requires minimum off time. So during this time, players just continued practicing during the virus, and no tournaments were going on, but a couple of breakaway leagues started. The first one was the league Novak Djokovic started, and his league was a breakaway from the ATP tour, and he was actually the president of the ATP Players Council. So he used his position and he had resources to start up his league, which actually ended up in like a miserable failure. His league went from having players and a lot of players registered, and they ended up partying after the first night. No mask, no quarantine, sharing hotel rooms. That a virus outbreak happened, and this was during July of 2019 or July of 2020, I should say, when COVID was at its worst, and things just went crazy very fast. So yeah, that thing happened, and it was that league was canceled instantly. There was like only one round of matches played, and was supposed to be like a league that would travel around throughout the COVID. But another league that was actually really successful based on what they saw the flaws of that league was the Ultimate Tennis Showdown League. This league was like unlike the traditional tennis format where they would actually keep track of the score using 4 10-minute quarters instead of the traditional winning a set to win a match format. This format would feature the 10-minute quarters and players having to win more points in each quarter, and whoever won the most points at the end of the quarter would win like 1 out of 4, and you got to win 3 out of the 4 quarters to win the match. And if you're tied at 2, there would be a 5-minute overtime to decide the winner. This was a league that was very successful because the players used used a lot of quarantining. There would be no crowd, unlike the Djokovic League, which had a crowd attendance and virus spreading through that when it was during the summer. And so this crowd was played on indoor courts in Germany. They did not have any crowd, and the coaches were actually allowed to help coach the players throughout the points, which is not allowed anywhere else in professional tennis. And this league went really well, to be honest. And I feel like COVID was a time for a lot of leagues to try new options, sports to try things they'd never tried before. And I even predicted it. Like, honestly, it was the first time that I ever imagined seeing video games on ESPN. Like I was like, they're gonna put esports on ESPN eventually, and this was the time to see esports were on ESPN, and they continually are on now. It's like COVID was a great way to explore new options than the traditional formats previously held. Thank you for my video, guys. Please like and subscribe.